If you desire philosophy, prepare yourself from the beginning to be ridiculed, to expect that many will sneer at you and say, "He has all at once returned to us as a philosopher, and whence does he get this supercilious look for us?" Do you not show a supercilious look, but hold on to the things which seem to you best as one appointed by God to this station. And remember that if you abide in the same principles, these men who first ridiculed will afterwards admire you. But if you shall have been overpowered by them, you will bring on yourself double ridicule. I'm going to start with a story. So imagine that there's somebody named Sarah, and Sarah has just taken her first philosophy class. Now, Sarah is really enthusiastic about it, and she goes around talking to everybody she meets about questions like, is there an external world? Is there a God? What makes something beautiful? And what does it mean to be moral? Not everybody appreciates these questions. Some people find them just obnoxious. And so she gets lots of responses like, who does this philosopher think she is? Like, where does she get off trying to annoy me with these questions? Who is she to come into my church and question the existence of my God? And etc. And there's two ways that the story could end for her. So on ending A, what happens is that Sarah says, I'm just going to give up. Maybe philosophy is stupid, maybe I'll just go and do something else. And that's really sad for a couple reasons. One of them is that she's being cut off from this beautiful, wonderful way of flourishing. But the other is that now she's subjecting herself to what Epictetus calls a double ridicule. And there's the ridicule of setting out on a project that people think is silly, but then there's the ridicule of failing at the project. And I think there's also a little bit of self-ridicule because it's like, look at how stupid I was to pursue this kind of task. So if your goal is to avoid ridicule, it's not the best way of doing it. Just sort of letting the people who ridicule you direct your life. That's just a way of inviting more ridicule. So that's the first ending. But imagine another ending. Imagine that what she does instead of giving up is she says, you know what, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to become a philosopher. So she writes philosophy papers. She becomes a philosophy professor. She's teaching philosophy classes. She starts weighing in on important policy questions. Maybe she gets some kind of advisor position somewhere. She's writing books. She's weighing in on matters of public concern in both the public sphere and in the more academic sphere. And she just develops this wonderful life. The people who ridiculed her originally, according to Epictetus, are not going to be ridiculing her anymore. They're going to be impressed now. Now they're going to admire her. And so, again, not listening to what the people who are ridiculing you are trying to tell you is, in this story, the way that you avoid the ridicule. So if what you're saying is I want to avoid ridicule, well, a good way to do that is just to not care if you're being ridiculed and to persist in your task and to really pursue it with a lot of integrity and intensity and commitment. Then you can become successful, and then you'll be able to, you're not going to be ridiculed at that point. And so that's the 22nd chapter of the Enchiridion by Epictetus. And like I've been doing in the last couple of videos, I'm going to relate this to logic-based therapy. So one thing that logic-based therapists say that people do that makes them miserable is something called bandwagon reasoning, where you just join the bandwagon. And when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're saying, if somebody else engages in some behavior or does something or doesn't do something, then I should engage in that behavior too. And I should do that thing, or I should not do that thing that the person doesn't do. And that's a good way of making yourself miserable. So what you should do instead is kind of insist upon your own agency and your own personality and live the unique life that you actually want to live. And what Epictetus is doing here in the 22nd chapter of the Enchiridion is offering us a perspective that's helpful in orienting our lives in that direction of avoiding bandwagon reasoning. And so what he's saying is, maybe you don't like ridicule. Well, a really bad way of avoiding ridicule is to let those who ridicule direct your life. What you do instead is persist in your task with all the integrity and intensity and commitment that you can muster,